tell us a little bit about, how you grew up, where you grew up, what kind of is your background, what would you describe as your culture?
Great, yeah. So I grew up in Massachusetts. I come from an Iranian family. We actually moved to the States when I was 5 from Iran. My brother, my parents, and I. I grew up in a Bahá'í household. So my religious faith is Bahá'í Faith. And I think that has shaped me as I grew up, and it continues to influence my life greatly. And again, these views that I'm going to voice today are my own. I'm not a professional or a professional speaker of the Bahá'í Faith or anything like that. But it has definitely shaped who I am and how I think and the principles that I try to live by.
And the principles you've introduced me to, just obviously in our conversation between you, me, your husband, just learning and me being kind of in an exploration stage with when it comes to religion and faith. I'm always trying to learn different things from different cultures. So the Baha'i faith is one that is, if I'm not mistaken, a newer faith, and one that I identify a lot with the principles, the values, the morals, the overall culture and code of the religion or the faith. And would you differentiate between religion and faith, or what's the proper way to say? I know.
Great question. I mean, it's called the Baha'i Faith. We see all religions, including the Baha'i Faith, as really part of one religion. So the unity of religion, meaning the concept that there's really only one religion of God, is really deep in the Baha'i Faith. And what that means is that all the different religions we see today practiced in the world, we see as part of like chapters of a different book. So they all build on each other. They all have come at different times. But they're all part of the religion of God, the greater book of the religion of God. And we believe the Baha'i Faith is just the most recent chapter in that book.
Wow.
That makes sense.
That's, it's funny. You're bringing up different things in my head of past conversations that we've had. And that probably is one that stood out to me the most, that just because it makes sense. Different faiths or religions come into play at different times, and different solutions are required at different times. So therefore it makes sense to say like, oh, well, this religion may be a little bit different than that religion just based on it was serving a different purpose at that particular time. So that's something that always stood out to me, and just the acceptance of all religions and the understanding that, hey, this is all the same thing. This is all under the same God.
Yes.
We're just able to tap into different things at different moments and kind of pull what we need at that time. Is that,
Absolutely. I think, and as a physician myself, I love the quote from the Baha'i writings that describes these prophets of God, these teachers that have brought the different religions as divine physicians. And there's a quote that describes that these prophets of God are the divine physicians, and they have their finger on the pulse of mankind. So they know at a given time what are the main ills of society and of humanity, and then they can prescribe the remedy that applies to those problems for humanity at that time. We're not, humanity's constantly changing, evolving, growing, progressing, and so the specific remedies for 3,000 years ago may not apply to today, and the ones for today might not apply 4,000 years from now. So that does need to evolve. Or I like to, when I talk to kids, I talk about the iPhone because they relate to that. I'm like, all right, there's one iPhone, there's one religion, and there's iPhone 1, 2, 3, what are we on now? 14? I don't know.
And
it's upgraded,
14,
right? It's upgraded
right.
Because our needs are different, and then our technology changes, and we're able to do different things. And you could use an iPhone 9 or 10, but it might be a little bit not as applying to what you need right now.
So everything that you're saying is bringing about context. Like sometimes with religion, when it's taught to us, either we're not asking the right questions, or maybe it's not taught to us with a certain amount of context that you just described. So sometimes we'll compare one religion that may have come at a time where, let's say, there was a lot of promiscuous behavior.
Right.
So it may say like, hey, we need to address this issue, cover up a little bit more.
Yes.
And, just to get that respect back.
Yes.
But then to apply it to a different time where maybe things are okay, like, hey, there's a lot of control, going on. I want to be a little bit more free. People may think that. So it's kind of unfair to compare a religion across the board to one particular time without giving that context and that understanding. Because if you gave me an iPhone 1 right now, I'd say it's the worst phone in the world. However, when it came out, it was the best thing.
Yes.
You know, it was groundbreaking. So that's kind of how I see the Baha'i Faith and how it's a little bit different in the teachings compared to a lot of the other religions.
Absolutely right. So some things might seem contradictory, but you cannot take things out of context. Absolutely right. Same as an individual human being as you're developing. You're a kid, you know, you're a toddler, and then you're like a preteen, and then you're a teenager, and then you're entering maturity and adulthood. And you can't view the person today and look at what they did when they were 9 or 10. You know, there's a development, there's a progress, there's an evolution and a maturity. And sometimes you make mistakes, and humanity is no different. Collectively, you know, if you think of it in those terms, it all comes together and makes sense. Things that seem contradictory no longer seem contradictory. Like a 3-year-old is a little bit of a narcissist, right?
I would agree.
They're a little narcissistic.
Or a 30-year-old.
Yeah, or a 30-year-old. But if you don't develop out of that, it's okay to think that way when you're 3. But then you're growing and you're developing. And at 25, you're going to think differently.
Right.
And you're going to have developed different qualities, you know.
Now, is that something that, because I agree with everything you just said, and I think the word that comes to mind is a grace, you know, extending grace. And something that my brother has always called me out on is he's like, you can't hold me accountable for who I was when I was 10 or 15. Right. You got to give people a chance to grow. Yeah. And when he told me that, it kind of made me reflect on myself and say, like, I'm not the same person that I was then. So I need to also be able to extend that grace. Was this your particular, like, family, how you were raised in your family, or is this more so how most Baha'i Faith members see the world as well? Yeah,
these are all teachings that we get from the Baha'i Faith. These are how the Baha'i Faith has described religion and humanity and progress. And so I did grow up in most Baha'i families, same. They grow up with these concepts and ideas. And I did grow up in a Baha'i family where about 3 generations on both sides come from the Baha'i Faith. Prior to that, you know, from Iran, and it was a Muslim background. But yeah.
That's interesting. And just me learning about it, I expect a lot more Americans to learn about the Baha'i Faith, because I think it's, like you said, it's a newer technology, comparing it to the iPhone that we need right now. Right. That a lot of us seem lost, you know, without the right guidance. And this seems, that's too old, or that's too new, or this too progressive, or this too conservative. So I think the Baha'i Faith offers an excellent balance. So I'm excited to learn more. And now we'll get into a little bit more of how your upbringing shaped you to become who you are today. First, we'll start on the professional side. Sure. I've had the pleasure of seeing you compete with your brother. No, it was compete with your friend, with your brother's friend on the basketball court, on the old camcorder videos. Yep. And I saw you, I saw tenacity, I saw discipline, I saw everything that you would want your kids to have. To develop, you know, certain things that we've talked about. It's hard, you know, you want to give your kids a good life, but at the same time, you want them to also learn discipline, determination, you know, being a go-getter, working hard. I saw all that demonstrated in that video. So I'm just interested from the professional side, how your Baha'i faith, your family upbringing helped prepare you to excel on the professional side.